Welcome everyone to the Giver Method channel. My name is Jake and I'm so glad you're able to join me. Now today we're going to be talking about these strategic input shifts that you can use to unlock your next level. I refer to them as like the audit to advance, okay? So that you can really transform who you are and step into who it is that you're meant to be and make a greater impact and live a more fulfilled life. Now this is something that is really, for a lot of people, the missing piece in a transformation puzzle. You know, have you ever caught yourself thinking something like, you know, I'm doing all this work, I'm reading the books or listening to the podcasts, I show up every day, but I still feel stuck, you know, or why do I keep pouring in all this effort, but I still feel like overwhelmed, not inspired, or, you know, why do I have the best of intentions, but I struggle with making decisions with real confidence? You know, if any of those resonate with you, if you feel with any of those, like, you're not alone. And honestly, this answer might surprise you. You know, maybe you're the parent who's scrolling past, you know, endless like perfect parenting posts that leave you thinking like maybe you're falling short, instead of seeing the connection that you are building with your kids. You know, maybe you're the entrepreneur following gurus who preach, you know, a vision of success that just doesn't even match what you really want, leaving you second guessing your own decision, you know, your own direction of where you're going. Or maybe you're an employee scrolling through LinkedIn highlights and thinking like, what am I doing? Instead of recognizing the value that you bring every day. Now, what I've discovered, you know, and that the breakthrough most of us are looking for doesn't come from doing more. It comes from being way more intentional about, you know, what we're letting into our minds, what's filling our mind, what's filling our calendar, what's filling our social feeds. You know, so I want to dive deep in that and really help you uncover what that could look like, so you can put in these missing pieces to your transformation. And my name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder and author of this book called The Giver Method. It came out in November. Since coming out, it has sold thousands of copies. There's tons of 5-star reviews. Like I said, it's an Amazon bestseller. And it is, everything we covered today is grounded in it. It's grounded with, like, packed with all sorts of exercises, worksheets, things like that for the person who's wanting to create more impact and influence in their life, more value, discover their gifts and superpowers, have better relationships, and live a more fulfilled life. It's the best $10 you can invest in yourself. So I highly recommend you go grab yourself a copy. I'll put a link down in the description so you can go get access to it. Now, a lot of what I cover in here, I ground in my own stories as well. You know, and I'll tell you, I'll never forget when these types of things, like this type of a puzzle piece started to break through and fit for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? Like, I realized one day that like my own social feed was programming me to feel behind. Like, I was following all these like success accounts that made my progress feel small. I was taking in the content that actually left me like doubting my own path instead of reinforcing it. And the crazy thing was, like, I was working so hard on my growth, but my inputs were quietly sabotaging like the progress that I wanted. Like, that moment kind of changed a lot of things for me, because here's what I want you to know. You can't grow a garden of purpose if you're constantly watering it with the weeds, okay? You know, what you feed your mind with, like, it will grow. You know, no matter if it's good or bad. And if you want to change the outcomes, your impact, your fulfillment, then you first have to change the inputs that you're putting in. And the good news is, like, it doesn't require some massive overhaul in your life. I love, in the book and everything I do, I try to ground as much science-based research as I can. So, like, the different research others showed people who intentionally curate their inputs, like what they're bringing in, they report 34% higher life satisfaction. And they make decisions 28% faster with more confidence. And it's like, once again, that's not about adding more to what you're already full plate. It's just about replacing the stuff that's draining you. You know, so with you know, more things that actually fuel you. So what I want to talk about, what I want you to walk away with today, is these like 7 input shifts that are specifically meant for busy parents and overwhelmed entrepreneurs and dedicated employees that, you know, I've worked with so many of them that they could start using to break out of these types of stuck patterns, and you can too. It helps you to unlock your next level. Like I said, everything's grounded in the Giver Method, showing those like same conscious inputs, like how it sets up the foundation for discovering your gifts and creating meaningful change. Once again, you can go down the link, get that off Amazon or thegivermethod.com. In the link down below, the description below, I'll also put where you can find us on all the social medias: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those sorts of places. And for those of you who want maybe a little more hands-on support, one-on-one support, I just opened up a couple of spots, just a couple of coaching and mentoring positions, where, like, if you're ready, like, you know, you want to move faster and break through these patterns and finally start showing up with more action-based confidence, types of stuff that we're going to be talking about today, you want to be able to unlock these puzzle pieces that have been missing, then you'll find the link in the description where you can learn more about that coaching and one-on-one program. Now, if this topic resonates with you and you've got a stage, a podcast, a team, an event, or a community where you're like, gosh, this message could really make a difference, well, I'd love to explore how we could bring this to your people to serve them. So once again, there'll be a link down below, podcasting and speaking link that you can click on to find out more details and to book a time. And of course, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, tap that bell for notifications so that way you get notified with all future content. I post videos throughout the entire week, every single day. Won't want you to miss out on any of the value that I'm trying to get in front of you. At the same time, comment your thoughts along the way. I love to hear that. I love to comment back. But for now, let's just start talking about how you can audit, and limit and replace the inputs that are keeping you stuck and finally advance towards what you're meant to become. And so the first thing that you want to look at is I call it the content consumption audit, where you identify what's programming your subconscious success or sabotage, that thing that's feeding your mind, because this is one of the biggest game changers. It was for me and for a lot of parents and entrepreneurs and employees that I work with. It's realizing that your inputs are shaping you. Every scroll, every podcast, every video, every conversation is feeding your mind. And the question is, are those inputs programming you for the life that you want, or are they putting you in even more of a stuck pattern than where you were? Now, the thing is that most people don't even realize what's coming in because we're busy and we're tired. We're running on, maybe autopilot. And before we know it, you're taking in tons of stuff that just leaves you more confused, more doubtful, and more drained than actually inspired. This is a cognitive pollution is what they refer to it as, mental clutter that just makes it harder to be clearly trust your own decisions. And I'll be honest, this hits me hard when I realized my own social media feed was doing the exact same thing. Thought I was staying informed, but really I was feeding my brain with stuff that pulled me away from who I wanted to become. And once I started noticing, it shifted for me. So here's how I want you to do. Here's what this idea of this audit, okay? What I want you to do is I want you to first take stock of what's coming in. So maybe for the next week, do this 3-bucket sort of any piece of content that's coming in, whether it's social or podcast or news or video, and ask yourself, does this move me toward the person I want to be? Does it leave me neutral, or does it pull me away? And that's it. Don't judge it. No judgment to yourself. No judgment to what the thing is. Just notice how you feel in that moment. And you'll start spotting patterns, the voices that lift you up, the ones that wear you down. Hopefully this is one that lifts you up. Next, what I want you to do, I want you to try the post-scroll energy check. After maybe you've been going through scrolling and looking at something, or reading or had a conversation, pause for a second and ask yourself, how do I feel? Do I feel lighter or heavier? More clear or more stuck? And just noticing that helps you tune into the inputs in life that are either building you up and giving you more energy, or quietly draining you. And then one more thing that you can do is you keep a simple content and impact note maybe on your phone, and you jot down those moments when the content helped you show up better, or when it knocked you off your track. Maybe it's you listened to an uplifting podcast that gave you the courage to speak up in a meeting. Or maybe you scrolled through this post that made you compare yourself to other people, and you felt this nervous energy come up. Maybe you snapped at your family later. I don't know. The more that you can connect those dots, the more of what motivated you, the more of what drained you or detracted you, the more that you can start to clean up those inputs, because the truth is what you allow in shapes you. Every piece of content either moving you closer to the goal or further away from it. So that's going to be the foundational pieces. Let's audit what we're actually bringing in, so that as we look at these other possible ways to look at this, these strategies and tactics and things, these inputs to look at, how it's going to shift things. So that's going to be the first one and the foundational one. The second one is this mindset interruption technique. So we have to break the automatic thought patterns that keep us stuck, okay? I think, say it this way, catch it, shift it. That's just, I got to catch it in the moment and shift it. How I stop thoughts from getting stuck in there in the first place. Something that trips a lot of people up without even realizing them is old thought patterns, the autopilot, the pre-programming that's already just built into our brains. I should be further along than this. I'm not doing enough. I'm not the type of person who XYZ succeeds or does that. But the thing is most of those thoughts, you didn't actually choose them. They're just old patterns of your brain running through this old conditioning. Past experiences are stuff that you absorb from other people or the content around you. And the wild part is that the data out there shows 98% of our thoughts today are just recycled from yesterday. So you don't have to, you don't start interrupting your patterns or holding them back. You're gonna you're gonna be keeping the same result no matter how hard you're working. So start with this thing, the catch it side. So there's the of it practice, where you pick one thought that tends to show up a lot. Maybe it's something like, I'm behind, or I can't do this, or I'm failing at this. And for 1 week, just notice every time that thought pops up. You're not trying to fix it yet, just catch it and say to yourself like, oh, there it is again, I found you. There you are. You're probably surprised how often those types of ones are showing up. And then next, when you're ready, start adding the simple redirect. When you catch the old thought, then follow through with something helpful. Like, if something pulls you, something that pulls you back towards growth, like for example, like I'm behind becomes like, hey, I'm exactly where I need to be, and I just need to figure out my next step. Like, I can't do this becomes like, hey, I'm figuring out as I go. You're not trying to force fake positivity. You're just gently shifting the story in your brain. And then one more thing you can do is you can build a couple of mindset resets during the day. So like, think of it like over morning coffee or at lunch or before bed. Like, pause and ask yourself, like, what's been on my mind today? Are these thoughts helping hold me back? Are these helping or holding me back? What's one thought that I could lean into instead? How could I show up better tomorrow in that, to have that show up? It only takes a few minutes, but it makes a massive difference for you, because your thoughts and like they shape your emotions. Your emotions drive your actions. These old limiting patterns and programming, if they're running the show, it's hard to stay motivated to take bold action. But when you catch it and shift those patterns, you stop living on those old stories and start building the new ones. You stay more motivated, so you're not stuck like where you're at when things pop up. Like, you can choose how you want to shape your life. Now, our third one is like, there's this activity energy audit, where like you're discovering which actions fuel you versus drain you, and fueling you, like that's the biggest thing. And I've got videos where I talk in depth about this, so I'm going to run through it quickly. But you can find the other videos on the channel all about energy audits. Like, now the something I see, because I see it all the time with busy parents, entrepreneurs, employees, that people fill their calendars with stuff like they have to do without ever asking, like, is this giving me energy or taking it away? What happens is, by the end of the day, they feel drained and disconnected, wondering why everything feels so heavy, even when technically they were like productive. And the truth is, not all activities affect us in the same way. Some fill your tank and some are going to quietly drain you. And if you don't pay attention to that, it's going to get you. So here's what I want you to do. You're going to start simple. For 1 week, I want you to try like an energy tracking exercise, where after every major activity, could be a work task, a meeting, a conversation, an errand, a family thing, whatever, pause for 10 seconds and ask yourself, did this leave me feeling more alive or more drained? Give it a score. Maybe it's like -3 is super drained, and up to +3 where you're super energized. Like, you can jot down on your phone, a note, whatever. It doesn't have to be fancy. And then by the end of the week, you're gonna start spotting these patterns, things that lift you up, things that wear you out, the things that are pretty neutral, and then start to rebalance. Like, asking yourself, like, what's one thing I maybe could do a little bit less? What's one thing I could add a little more next week? You're not trying to fix everything or completely overhaul your life. You're just trying to tip the balance towards what fuels you. And one additional thing that you can do there, like one additional layer, is that like you look for the ways to bring your natural gifts and the stuff that you have to do. Like, we're parents, entrepreneurs, employees. Like, there are the have to do's, But if you're creative, bring some creativity into the boring task. If you're rational, like, be the human. How's the human touch? In solo work. If you're curious, approach routines with all sorts of fresh questions. Whatever your gifts are, bring them to it, because those small shifts that can turn things that drain you into neutrals or even into energizers. Growth takes energy, impact takes energy. You can't give your best when you're running on empty. So if you start filling your days with a little bit more, the things that fuel you, like that motivation becomes more neutral. Like, your presence gets easier, your impact, it multiplies, and it's not theory. People who do this, like, they report 38% higher satisfaction and better stress management. Bottom line, like, feeling energized isn't selfish, it's strategic, and it helps you show up authentically with who you need to be in that moment. Now that leads us into the fourth one. There's this digital boundary framework, okay? So creating sacred spaces while eliminating comparison triggers. Like, how do I protect my mind? And clear out that digital noise. Because if we're real with each other, like, we live in a world that is absolutely flooded with digital noise. Most of us, like, there is the, like, one way, like, we accidentally program ourselves for either confidence or comparison. Like, it's like, this is like, it's how it works, for feeling good, like where we are, or constantly doubting ourselves. Like, we have got these social channels, these things that are just pulling it out of us. I mean, the average person checks their phone 96 times per day, and that stuff that you're seeing, it's mostly highlight reels or hustle posts, like, and it makes you think, like, why am I not further along? Like, those triggers start to come up. When you're already juggling full life of kids and business and work and family, whatever, like that digital overwhelm takes a real toll. It steals your attention, it fragments your thinking, and it leaves you quietly second guessing your own path. Like that's why creating some intentional boundaries around digital stuff is important. And I'm not saying this is like an anti-tech thing in any way, but it's just protecting your mind and finding those times where I'm choosing to do that, or I'm choosing to be away. Like, you're giving your space to hear your own thoughts and trust your own direction. So start by picking one protected space in your day. Maybe it's in your bedroom. Maybe it's the first hour of your morning. Maybe it's dinner time with your family. Like choose one area and let's like the phone goes away. No scrolling, no news inputs, no TV, no nothing. Just space to breathe. And you'll be surprised how much clearer your mind will feel. And then you start noticing like these comparison triggers. Like, so for the next week, after you scroll, you watch, or you listen to something, check in like, do I feel inspired or do I feel less than? And if it leaves you doubting yourself or your progress, like maybe it's time to unfollow or unsubscribe that. Maybe you want to replace it with voices that actually inspire you to become who it is that you're meant to be, because that's what the world's looking for. Now, one more simple shift that you can do is like when you do engage with digital stuff, practice like single focus. Like don't multitask, don't bounce between screens, like just one thing at a time. Maybe it's 15 minutes focused on reading or the podcast that truly aligns with your values. Like train your brain to stop reacting and start absorbing what matters. Be amazed when you scroll through someone's feed or when you scroll through your social media feed, if you actually took the time to read each thing and think of if there's a way, like, is this something that I actually want to like or comment on? Like how much it slows down and you just process the data better. Because the truth is, like, you can't hear your own wisdom when your brain is constantly on scroll mode. Like you can't build authentic confidence if you're feeding your mind with like a steady diet of comparison. But when you create a little protected space and when you clean it up, like what you're letting in, like you reconnect with you. Like that's what matters. It's one of the simplest ways to stop feeling stuck, is to start moving forward on your own terms. Now, we're about halfway through this video, and I'd love to know if there's been so far any ahas, takeaways, things like that, things that have jumped out to you. So because we're going to get into the final three, and if so, I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to comment back on it. So our fifth one, we're staying in the digital space, okay? But now this is where it is like a digital detox strategy. Like once again, I need to free my mind from all the overwhelm. Most of us have no idea what it feels like anymore to just go through the whole day without the digital noise, phones, emails, the endless scroll. Like, we're just so used to it. We forget that it's actually like to think our own thoughts, especially now that AI is coming into play. We don't even hear our own intuition anymore. And when you're already busy running business, raising kids, showing up for work, like nonstop digital stimulation, it steals your time. Like we just hit on this, and so you want to build these mental quiet times, these digital free zones, and now we're talking like completely, not just social, like not just monitoring what you're doing or whatever. It's like, no, completely digital free. Once again, think about it this way, like the first 30 minutes of your day, at lunch, around the dinner table, whatever that space is, like no tech, no digital at all, no news or scrolling or emails. Just give yourself that chance to breathe, and then, try a input fast. Like maybe it's like, I'm going to intentionally cut some of these out. I'm not going to fill in the blank, feed. I'm not going to name any, but, maybe you're not going to listen to that podcast or watch that video or read that post. Block out that little bit of time where, no new content. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to reflect on what's already on my plate and notice any maybe creative ideas that start bubbling up when I'm not filling every gap with outside noise. And the real fun one is you practice these like single focus time blocks where it's pick one thing, the conversation, a project, a book you're reading, whatever, and give it your full attention. No multitasking, no background noise. Just 15 minutes where you can feel like this fresh restart, and then build from there. Because here's the deal, when your mind is always on reactive mode, to the external inputs, like you lose touch with your own wisdom. But when you give yourself a little mental space, that's when the clarity comes. That's when your best ideas start showing up. Research out there shows like the people who do these regular digital detox periods, they see like it was a 67% better creative problem solving and stronger focus. But beyond those numbers, it feels good. You reconnect with you, and instead of getting lost in everyone else's noise, you're able to show up more authentically as who you want to be and who you're trying to become. All right, the sixth one is going to be this comparison elimination protocol, like how you remove the inputs that trigger the self-doubt and inadequacy altogether. Like stop feeding the comparison trap. Like now it's the thing that, it quietly knocks people like completely off track, especially these days. That constant comparison, like you're scrolling through social media, you're watching those, overnight success stories, which don't exist, trust me. You're seeing curated highlight reels of people's lives, and whether you realize it or not, like that stuff is going to get into your head, and here's what happens. You start measuring your own messy real life progress against someone else's really polished version of success, and before you know it, like you're second guessing everything, and like you thinking like, why am I not further along? Why does this look so easy for them? And your own wins start to feel smaller and smaller, even though like they have deep meaning to you, like they've had an impact. And so this is so important because like you've got to stop feeding the comparison trap, because if you keep letting that stuff in, no matter like no amount of personal growth work you do can override it. It just keep pulling you back into the self-doubt mode. So what you want to do is start that comparison audit is what you want to look for, where 1 week, like anything you scroll past, a podcast or a video or whatever, like check in, like am I feeling inspired? Does it grow? Like am I finding myself less than, feeling less than I should be? Like, am I comparing myself to that? Like, where am I at? Or like, am I doing the man I really wish is? Like, those are some things that you start to notice, like which voices are constantly leaving you doubting yourself, or the path that you're on. Make a list of those accounts and channels and shows. Like, then, like, here's the key. The practice is like, you have to immediately unfollow. Like, the second you spot a comparison trigger, unfollow, unsubscribe, block it if you need to. Like, don't talk yourself out of it. Just trust your gut. If something's constantly leaves you feeling worse, it's not serving you, period. And the next thing is like redefine what success is to you, curate your digital space to reflect what matters to most to you, okay? Not something of someone else's version of success. If presence matters more than hustle, then follow the voices that reflect that. If connection matters more than status, then like find the content that honors that for you. You want your input, like programming your mind for your path, not someone else's. Because like you're constantly taking in the highlight reels, and it distorts the baseline of where we're at. It makes authentic growth feel like you're not enough. But like when you clean that stuff out, like, and create the mental space for actually trusting your journey, man, like you're going to do so much more. You higher self-confidence, stronger motivation to pursue your goals that truly fit you. Your gifts, your path, your impact, like they can only be compared to, like they can't be compared to anyone else's, because you're the only person who has the unique combination of your gifts, background, superpowers, path, purpose, all of that, all combined into one. So you're not here to match their life, you're here to build yours. And cleaning out those comparison triggers helps you do exactly that. Now, our final one, which is this idea of like the weekly life curation practice. So design your upcoming week to support your authentic growth, okay? Curating your week, that's what it's about. Don't just survive. Because if we're honest, for most busy parents, entrepreneurs, or employees, the week kind of just runs us instead of the other way around. We look at our calendar, we react to all the stuff that's coming at us. We hope that we can squeeze a little personal growth or connection in there as a part of it. But the thing is like, if you don't design your week with intention, like the default will always take over. The autopilot kicks in, old habits, draining activities, comparison triggers, that stuff sneaks right back in. That's why this is such a game changer for you. Every week, you take a little bit of time to consciously curate what's going on in your mind, in your calendar, in your energy, so that you're not, just hoping for alignment. You're setting yourself up for it. So start this like, okay, you need to have like a values first planning session, where before you look at your calendar, to-do list, pause and ask yourself like, what kind of person do I want to be this week? How do I want to show up for my family, my team, my clients, and myself? And then look at your commitments, and intentionally plan the way that you bring you more into the week. Then think about like what you're going to be, like what you're going to actually let in based on your content audit, asking yourself like, well, what am I going to consume this week, like this next week, that's going to lift me up? What needs to go, and plan ahead. Maybe one great podcast like you want to listen to, you're like, I'm going to take that one in. The one voice that you want to follow, like maybe there's one boundary that you're going to set apart, like, and be like, that falls in comparison triggers, and I'm going to be eliminating that. Don't just hope you'll make better choices in the moment. Design them ahead of time. And then finally, like, end your week with some simple reflection. What moved you what moved you forward this week? What drained you? What adjustments can you make next week? Like, you'll start spotting patterns really fast, and this weekly curation gets sharper every time that you do it. Because like, here's the truth. Lasting growth doesn't happen from one big breakthrough. It's going to happen through these small intentional actions made again and again. And like even you take just a little bit of time in the week to design the input and your energy around your authentic goals, that's where the momentum really starts to build for you. You know, people who want to hit personal growth goals, like, gosh, you are way more likely to do that by doing, like, planning ahead your week with this sort of intention. You know, you start feeling like you're driving your life instead of getting dragged alongside it. You know, that shift is going to set so many other things in motion for you. Now, I want to leave something with you. Like, I want you to be able to take some stuff away from this. Like, the change that you're looking for, it's not hiding in some massive overhaul or some perfect life setup in any sort of way. It's sitting in the small daily choices, you know, the weekly intentions that you make about what's going on in your mind, your calendar, and affecting your energy. You know, that's what today is really all about. Shifting from accidental programming yourself for self-doubt, overwhelm, autopilot, to intentionally choosing inputs that actually move you forward. You don't have to change everything overnight. Trust me, don't try to. You just have to start paying attention and making some small shifts that align with the person that you want to become. Like, I won't forget when it happened to me when I started changing up my programming in my social feeds. Like, I was feeling like I wasn't doing enough. I was feeling like off. I always felt myself drained. Like, you know, it was the fact that I wasn't been consuming the wrong stuff for so long. I realized, like, how much it was shaping how I thought about myself and my progress, my potential. Like, that's when I learned, like, hey, the minute that, like, I get some sort of, like, conscious about what's coming in, like, that's the minute that you start changing things. It's like, wow, I realized how it's impacting me so much more. And of course, you don't have to be perfect. Like, you don't have to have the perfect schedule to do this. You don't need more hours in the day. Just start noticing. Maybe it's unfollowing a few accounts. Maybe it's, you know, that leave you doubting yourself. Maybe it's swapping out the old news first, you know, in the morning, something that lifts you up. Maybe it's, you know, reaching out to that one person in the week who helps you feel more like you, and, you know, that you can be more authentic with. And the beautiful thing is, like, these little shifts, they build on top of each other when you choose the input, you know, that's going to build your growth instead of comparison. And when you strengthen your belief in your own path, and every time you replace something, any part of that thing, like, that drains you with something that energizes you, you create room for more authentic living. And what's really cool is you start living the way, like, you want, on purpose, by design. You don't just feel better, you become more effective in almost everything else that you're going to do. Parents show up so much more present. Employees bring more leadership. Entrepreneurs build businesses that actually reflect who they are and what they're trying to, like, the impact they're trying to make. You know, this isn't just good for your well-being, it's good for the results and the outputs you're trying to do. Now, if you want to dive deeper into this stuff, if you want to get more in depth on what that looks like, once again, that's where I'd say the first step would be go get yourself a copy of the GIVER method down in the description. Like I said, you go get it off Amazon. It's going to have such a massive impact on your life. I promise you that. It's going to, like, curate, you know, not just help you curate the inputs, but help you tap into the gifts and the purpose that lights you up so you can go live that more fulfilled life. If you're feeling like, you know, hey, some personal support, the one-on-one help would be important. Like, once again, I did open up a couple of one-on-one coaching spots. So if having someone in your corner sounds like what you need right now, then there's a link in the description where you can go check that out. And of course, like I said at the beginning of the call, or the beginning of the video, if you lead a team, run a podcast, host a mastermind event, a call, a group thing, whatever, like, you know, or any space where people gather, and you think, like, this kind of message or one like it could serve them, I'd love to chat about how we could bring it to, you know, bring this work to your audience in really practical and actionable ways, you know, so you'll find that link below as well. And of course, if this video helped you in any way, please, you know, I'd love it if you drop a comment, let me know what landed, you know, like the video, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss out what's coming up next. Now, last bit, and then I'll let you go. Just remember, you become what you repeatedly let into your life. The real question isn't whether you have time to be intentional, it's whether you can afford not to be intentional. Your next level, it's waiting for you. Like, you know, it's not waiting for perfect circumstances any sort of way. It's waiting for you right now. It's waiting for the choices you make, you know, and what you allow to shape your mind and your calendar and your life. So make better choices on those. Let's audit through them and let's clean it up and let's really become who it is you're meant to be, because the world's waiting for that. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad you took the time to spend the time to be here with me, and I will catch you in our next video. Feel free to check out other things on the channel or any of the links down in the description. Have a great rest of your day.